Security Now Illustrated by AskMisterWizard.com, illustrating concepts, mechanisms, and algorithms from the amazing Security Now podcast by Steve Gibson and Leo LaPorte. Episode 26, How the Internet Works, Part 2, Segment 4 of 5, TCP. For other kinds of network tasks, accuracy is paramount. In those cases, the transport protocol of choice is TCP, the Transmission Control Protocol, because it ensures detection and graceful recovery from network errors and diligent retransmission of any lost packets. TCP is also a port-oriented protocol, so computers can simultaneously host and address multiple TCP processes. In this segment, Steve discusses the advantages, disadvantages, and characteristics of the TCP protocol.
What TCP does by comparison is, and we'll sort of back our way into this, is it does a number of things. If you send lots of small packets, TCP says, whoa, wait a minute, there's a lot of overhead per packet. There's an IP header, and there's source destination, there's TTL, there's source port, destination port. There's a bunch of stuff that is overhead beyond just the actual data payload. So TCP does something where it coalesces packets into a larger packet, so that if you were trying to send a bunch of small TCP packets out of your computer, the lower networking layers would say, no, let's merge these together. But what that does is that delays the first packet until there's been some period of time you haven't sent one, or until you've got enough saved up that it's worth emitting a single larger packet from the system.
So it's concerned with overall network efficiency, not so much real time.
Correct. So one of the things that happens immediately with TCP is you lose your real time, send what I've got right now and let's not worry about anything else. When a TCP connection is established, the establisher sends a so-called SYN, an SYN packet. And we've talked about SYN floods, and zombies use SYN floods to attack servers. A SYN packet is sent. What the SYN packet contains, this is a TCP protocol SYN packet, it contains a 32-bit number from the connection originator saying, hi there, to the server, I want to establish a connection, and I'm going to number all the bytes that I'm now going to be sending to you, starting with this number, with this serial number. Mm-hmm. The server sends its response, which is called a SYN ACK. That's literally an ACK, which is acknowledging the receipt of the original SYN packet, and its own SYN component, which says, fine, let's set up a communication. I'm going to be numbering my bytes, all the bytes I send to you, with this serial number. So both endpoints establish a serial number for their future dialogue. And upon receiving that SYN ACK, the connection originator sends a final ACK to acknowledge the receipt of the server's SYN ACK. So this is called, I know, it's complicated. It's called a three-way handshake, a TCP three-way handshake, and it does a couple important things. Not only does it allow each endpoint to sort of start a serialization of all the data that follows, but it also verifies that a round trip for each endpoint is possible. One of the weird things about the internet, as we saw in our last episode, where you've got all this sort of this large conglomeration of routers, and all they know is when a packet comes in, they send it off towards its destination. Well, it's not necessarily the case that a packet going from point A to point B will flow backwards from point B to point A. That is, that responding packets will take the same path. Nothing says they have to.
Right. They're just another kind of packet traffic.
Yeah,
right?
Well, it might be, for example, that a certain link between routers is high speed in one direction and low speed in the other. So that if the routers had figured that out, they might choose not to route over a lower speed direction, but route in a different direction that would get the packet to its destination sooner. So the point is that you don't know necessarily that the fact that you can get your traffic to a destination necessarily means you're able to get it back from the destination. So the TCP three-way handshake, because the first guy sends a packet to the second guy, who sends a packet back to the first guy, who sends his final packet back to the second guy, that three-way handshake verifies to each endpoint that one way or another they can exchange data. So in our TCP connection, we've got both endpoints that have given each other their serial numbers. Now they have a full duplex connection, meaning that either of them can send data to the other anytime they want. And the beauty is all you have to do is just give the operating system some stuff to send. It chops it up in packets, which by the way, UDP doesn't do for you. So you have to be concerned about the size of the packets you're sending over UDP, not with TCP. TCP chops it up in nice size packets that are optimally tuned for your network and ships them off. It also puts the serial number of the byte, which is the first byte of the packet, in that packet for you. Now what's cool is the receiver is keeping track of this. It knows from the SYN packet that it received where the serial numbering is supposed to start. As the packets come in, it makes sure that they come in sequence. Because one of the other weird things that can happen in this loosey-goosey router internet is there's no guarantee that packets are not going to arrive out of order. If you're sending a bunch of packets towards a destination, they could, routers have the option of getting overloaded, and for example, a link between routers might get overloaded so that a different link would get used. Well, that might be a faster link, so packets sent later could arrive sooner at the receiving end. And UDP won't detect that for you. The TCP protocol does. Right. All hidden transparently down in the network. The receiving end is keeping track of serial numbers. If it receives a packet that is not sequentially next after the prior one it received, it'll hold on to it and wait for the missing packets to get filled in. The program that's running at that end, receiving data, doesn't see any of this. If it were caring, it would notice that it hadn't seen anything for a while. It might sense a delay, but TCP itself, the protocol, is doing all this for the programmer. And it's acknowledging to the sender the how far along I've received your data so far. What that means is if a packet got lost along the way, after waiting enough, and there's all kinds of very complex adaptive algorithms for how long it ought to be waiting, it will be acknowledging the data that it's received. If the sender doesn't get acknowledgement of the stuff it's been sending, it will automatically resend it. So even the sender is holding on to data that it has sent until it's been acknowledged as received by the receiving end. I mean, it's just phenomenal how well this system works. Right. So, I mean, it's been further developed over time, but the fundamental concepts that were laid down from the beginning have really stood the test of time beautifully.
It's a remarkable system.
To see the other segments and related resources for this episode, please join us at AskMisterWizard.com. Select Security Now from the prominent section index at the top of the homepage. Choose an episode from the index at the bottom, and then select a segment from the resulting page. The original audio-only version of this podcast can be found on the Gibson Research Corporation site at grc.com/securitynow. This clip illustrates some of the highlights from that show. This video clip comes from a large collection of related clips. All are indexed and easy to find at www.askmisterwizard.com, along with related items, text articles, illustrations, and forums. Please visit us today. We appreciate your support. Thank you.